detail. So I don't know. I guess I would ask everyone, what did you guys think of her kicking off the chapter with incidents of racial equity training, and how one of the members gets upset about how she's treated?
I think
go ahead.
I think it just goes to show that no matter basically who the messenger is, that people are going to receive it as in they need to go on the defense, basically.
Right.
Because she talks about how in those instances, it's not really people ever listening to understand, but more so listening to respond. That no matter what the approach is and how it's set up, they're all, the only thing they're thinking in their minds is defend, 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 defend. You know, you're putting me on the spot. You're labeling me as racist, so I have to defend it in some way, shape, fashion.
Right, and show that I'm not. Right. That I'm not racist. She talked about being a performer, professor, and a facilitator, and how she's in a position to give white people, quote, she says, feedback on how their unintentional racism is manifesting itself. So that made me think about, does anybody have an experience they want to share about how they experienced that, like a white person's racism manifesting unintentionally, but to where you felt it, but they didn't even know that it was happening? Or not.
Anybody, because I don't want to dominate the conversation today.
I was about to say, it just happens, you know, it happens frequently just in conversation where, you know, someone could say something. I can't remember exactly what one of my facility administrators said one time, but she was talking to me and she started using a tone of voice that she would consider, you know, how Black people, African Americans speak. And it was really offensive to me, but she thought she was somehow connecting to me. You know, I was just like, don't do that. Don't ever do that again in life. You know, so I think it happens frequently just every day. It doesn't have to be what they call microaggressions. It doesn't have to be major. But I agree with you, Nandi. I felt like in this chapter, especially chapter 9, she was just kind of restating some of the information she had said in the previous chapters.
Right.
You know, I think the only thing that she said that brought a lot of clarity for me is when white people use the word, I don't feel safe. Because I hear white women say that all the time. And when she says, really, it's code for I don't feel comfortable.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Because, you know, they're always like, I don't feel safe. And I'm like, what makes you not feel safe? Like, you know, in this situation. But when she says, okay, we don't feel comfortable and they have to feel comfortable, then that kind of brought a lot of clarity to me.
Yeah, I agree because it was funny how she said she had to strategically set up how she runs these workshops for like that reason, because of the microaggressions that people don't understand that they're necessarily doing at the time.
Right.
I mean, I've had to experience that in a couple of different settings, and you know, we had this conversation before. I hate to keep using our you know, situations as an example, but even with the whole situation about my hair, you know, when this white lady was commenting about my hair and then asked if I could do her hair like that.
Right.
And it's like, first of all, don't touch my hair.
Right.
Second of all, every time I do something with my hair, you feel like you have to comment on it. But you know, why is that? Why are we making this a thing on a regular basis?
What do you think,
I don't
though?
understand.
Why do you think that they comment?
I really don't understand.
Why do they comment on it?
And you know, in my mind, I don't necessarily like to give them the benefit of the doubt, because I feel like it's always something behind that. You know,
right.
I can't tell if you're being truly genuine in that you're actually interested, or are you trying to be funny in your own way, you know?
Or like, are you being just like ignorant in a way, almost like
Right.
blind to how your
Right.
questions or your comments might be offensive to me, in terms of you keep pointing out my hair,
Right.
and then you don't know if there's some, you know, like, I want you to do my hair like that. It can kind of go either way, a compliment or a diss. And so I don't know which one it is.
Right. And then for me, I felt like it was a diss because of who it was coming from.
Right.
And the fact, why I have to keep having these conversations with you, just stop talking to me at this point, which is basically what the end result was, is because, like, why is this the thing? Nobody else is doing this except for you, you know? So that's how I took it at that point. Hey, Shagun.
Hello.
I'm happy to see you today.
Oh yeah, I wanted to make it.
Yeah, you got the gray coming in with the You should definitely keep that. Keep that while we're inside.
Right. Where are we at? What I missed?
We were talking about, you know, just how unintentional white racism manifests itself.
Oh.
Like, as people have personal experiences with, you know, having, you know, dealing with that, with them being racist, but not even being clueless to the fact that they're being offensive to you.
Yeah.
In a way.
I can hop in on that note. So my dad, he sends me a lot of links and stuff, and one of the links he sent was a woman talking about voter suppression, and after that, this TED Talk about white fragility came up, and so that's the first time that I saw it.
So bad.
And I was dealing with my recent review by David, who gave me like a 60-something, barely enough to pass.
Mm-hmm.
And then he waited 2 weeks before sitting down with me. And then when he sat down with me, I had low marks for stuff like attendance. And I mean, I know all my students by name. And so the whole thing was just pissing me off. And so I was just ready to take the hit, because everybody had said that David, you know, gives low marks and just get ready for it. And then he said, I said, why did I get a 2 on Speaks Clearly? And he said, oh, that's because you mumble. You mumble a lot. And then my dad kind of came out of me, and I was just like, see, this is some of that racist BS that we just have to deal with at Chewbacca. And he was like, oh, you want to talk about it? I was like, no, I'll take it. I'm done. And I walked away. So he went in and told Preston that I called him a racist.
Instead of this is a racist
BS that we have to deal with.
Right, incident.
He's going to run back to the boss and say I called him a racist.
Right.
So, of course, I've got to backtrack and send a letter to protect my job, because I couldn't stand in my position and say, yeah, it was racist.
Mm-hmm.
But the letter worked in terms of, you know, not put me on that list that, who was the girl who called him racist and she left?
I don't remember her name.
You know, it's just something that they don't want you to bring up. It's exactly the point that she makes in the book. If you bring up that you think something is racist, now, to say that someone mumbles, okay, but, you know, my degree is in communication. Right. Both of my parents are college professors.
Right.
I grew up, my formative years at least, in Iowa. It's like, you can't see that this is a diss. even for the university, to have someone with 13 years of teaching experience to write that he mumbles, it's like, how do you guys make sense out of this even for your own, purpose?
Right.
So
Right.
in that situation, I was happy that the book kind of explained his behavior.
Right.
But at the same time, the book only is just fluff around the real issue of this racist ideology that they all have.
Oh yeah, and it's very, especially in the setting that we work in, at the university. A lot of it, when they come at us with different things about, you're being too lenient with the grading and all this other stuff, it's because our students actually work hard. They show up,
Right.
they respect us,
Right.
they communicate with us, and it's because they don't want to deal with y'all.
Right.
It's
Right.
well known because you bring those racist ideologies from America to here.
Right.
You want to fail these students for no reason. You think that they're lazy. You bring all of that with you. And it's a part of that. Yeah.
Yeah, when I got there immediately, they were saying, the students were complaining and he can't save my job if they go to the dean, which is just like a threat because nobody was going to the dean at that point. And so then the next quarter, you saw I got the highest student approval, and he's going to say, well, don't make them your friends. So they always, Preston.
Oh, wow.
So they always turn
You're something good into something negative.
Something
now
negative.
You're not a quality teacher. You're just a friend.
Right. And that's why I'm getting high.
That's why you're getting high marks, not because you're a good teacher.
Mm-hmm. But that's a part of it. That's a part of what we have to deal with these microaggressions. And it's only coming from that place of everything that's centered here as far as the white supremacist ideals. Essentially. So it is something that it's something that we have to deal with on a regular basis. And you have to, in your situation, like with what you were saying, and even in mine, I've had to bite my tongue on a lot of occasions, with the passive aggressive stuff. I've had my issues with Lauren and what she did in my classroom. So for those of y'all on the call that don't know, we have a lot of Caucasian colleagues that we work with at the university, and our students, they gravitate more to us because they know that we don't have those ideologies that they have. We don't perpetuate those types of that type of environment in our classrooms with our students. And so I was sharing a classroom with a Caucasian female, and in between the time that we have class, sometimes the classroom can get really messy because students will come in when they have breaks and actually just sit in there or eat their food and stuff. And it's not necessarily our students, but it may be other students who just need somewhere they want to hang out in between classes. So she actually wrote a message on the whiteboard that said, "Miss Yoshonda, me and my students had to clean up spilt coffee. Tell your students to clean up after themselves next time. Sad face," right?
Oh.
So not only were you trying to undermine me in front of my students, I'm sorry, it's a train going by, y'all. But you wanted them to.
You know how that goes.
We might have a train in a little while.
Right.
Yeah, let the train go. So not only were you trying to undermine me in front of my students, but you wanted them to see that because they were pissed. They were like, "Are you serious? Like, we can't believe she put that on the board." And the other thing is, that's not how we communicate. We communicate through Hangouts with different issues that we have. Right. So that was the passive aggressiveness. So I took it upon myself to write on the board and say, "Oh, so you could have sent me a message on Google Hangouts, right?" And secondly, we share this classroom, but there are other students that come in and out. So how do you think is my students? And then
Mm-hmm.
I put a sad face on the board, just like she did.
What was her response?
Right. That was she never said anything back after that.
That was it.
Right.
Never did dealt with.
And I specifically told the team leader, I said, look, I don't deal well with stuff like this, because
Right.
I'm liable the next time I see her and she tries me, I'm liable to smack the shit out of her, because I just don't operate well with that passive aggressive type stuff.
Right.
I try to remain professional, but hey, I only have a certain amount of things that I can take as well.
Yeah. And sometimes it is underlying of, she's talking about disability. And I thought about that when I finished the 2 chapters, and I was thinking, like, I wonder if it's almost promoting the idea that they're fragile to have that be the title of the book. White Fragility, what it's shaping in your mind about how you feel about them. And, I think it's good overall for them to read it and maybe get some kind of clue, but, I don't know.
We know all that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
The way she breaks it down to such great detail. A statement, that's a good statement, like that they, she says on page 117 that she's attempted to make visible the inevitable racist assumptions held and patterns displayed by white people conditioned by living in a white supremacist culture. And then she goes down to break down, what some of those patterns are. And then it goes into an example of her leading a workshop, but there's nothing deeper in terms of why are they that way, and why are they okay with that?
Well, I think that
that's the way it is, and we run from it.
But I think that I really felt like these 2 chapters in particular, she was talking specifically to white people. And I think that whereas we can read it and we're like, well, this is obvious because we've all, experienced microaggressions, and we, experienced direct racism in our lives. So we see it and its face value. I think that what she's pointing out is people really may not see it because they've never been exposed to it. Like, she made the comment about the lady who was from Germany who was like, well, I've never lived around Black people, so there's no way I could be racist. And she had to point out to her, like, no, ma'am, that's not the case, because you're still westernized. So you still have that ideology that says that, white is the standard. And so whether you choose to go with that and, say that with pride or not, the reality is that is the culture you're raised in. So I think it was more of a calling people out on things that they claim to be oblivious to, so that you can't say you didn't know.
I think it's not going to penetrate or reach anybody other than who already know these things. Like, it's a good book, like you say. It's a good guide to Caucasian people, particularly progressives. But even when she lists the way that you have to approach them and whatnot, there's no way. Every way they become victimized or they got a comeback. So there is no way to approach them. So what's going to pierce their heart to feel differently? We're not the Messiah. And I was thinking about the Breonna Taylor case, and I was looking at one of those news channels, and they were saying it's ridiculous. It's sad that the mother has to go on national TV to show her pain, her hurt, that this is her daughter, that she is human, for people to be like, man, this is actually somebody's daughter. But at the same time, did that really do anything? Because even though it's emotional, we can't, as this shows, we can't come off as emotional. We can't come out, you know what I'm saying? So did that really help? Because, so I just don't see, I see the same amount of people gonna be the ones to try to stop racism or stop. But for her to say that white supremacy is the bedrock of America, it's the institutions, where institutions are ran by people, I just don't see an end or a compressing of it. It's going to continue on, and we just gotta, what are we going to do
Right.
We can't look at them as to what they're gonna do. We gotta do something because they're not gonna do nothing that they haven't done.
Right.
True.
That's so true.
So true, yeah.
That's so true.
That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
That's so true.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think so.
So nobody have anything?
I mean, I agree because it's like if you can't take the message coming from one of you, you
How you gonna?
not taking it coming from us. Like literally, whoever they believe in would have to come down out of the sky and give them a lesson.
Right.
What do they believe in? Look at the evangelicals now. What do they believe in? They believe in money.
Basically, that is very true. It is.
I mean, I can't differentiate between a hardcore Trump supporter and a hardcore Jesus supporter. I'm sorry. I believe in God. I'm not an atheist, but I'm just saying what they are depicting is not showing what Jesus stood for. So I mean, their whole everything, the democracy, Christianity. This man is putting every type of institution into question. Honestly, because he's having the ability to turn everything around. Like all these evangelicals follow him knowing that he's not what Jesus represent, but he's Caucasian, so that's all that matters. It's like even the Republican Party, y'all stood for conservatism, y'all stood for bad morality and all of that, but here you have a man that represent none of that, but you willing to follow. So he's actually coming in and just dismembering any type of institution that America's standing on to show that America really ain't standing on nothing, really. And I don't want nothing to happen to America because I don't have the funds to leave if something happened, but he's really, John Legend already saying if this man get in the office, then America need to leave. You have the money to do that, sir. We do not. So what about us? What can we do? For him to even be talking about that, they know some inside stuff more so than we do.
I mean, yeah, but this is like when you see those. Okay, I'm gonna find it. When you see those movies, basically, when you got these like superheroes fighting against good and evil, it's like this is the end game. Basically, if you seen the Avengers, you watch the Avengers Endgame. This is really like a whole Thanos like situation where it's a snap and democracy disappears. And everything that follows along with it at this point. And as he talks about in the book, these people will do anything to uphold and maintain and hold on to white supremacy. Doesn't matter if they have to kill, steal.
It's showing now. Yeah.
It's to the extreme.
Absolutely.
Like this is the extreme case in what this is happening, even to the point where we got to be worried about this election being completely stolen. Not like with Gore and Bush, but like beyond that.
Beyond that,
like it doesn't matter. Period. Even if it's not close, even if he gets blown out of the water, that he's
not gonna leave. Yeah.
Like this is, and we have other countries looking at us like, what the hell?
Man, let me tell you something. I work with this, he's a nurse practitioner, work with me. He's from Kenya and he's a Christian and whatnot. And he, I talk politics to a few people, except for my doctor. He Caucasian. He a Trump supporter. Me and him kind of fell out a little bit. But anyway, so I was talking to him the other day and he was like, Kayla, I was just thinking, the United States are always fighting for people's civil rights and freedom, but who's fighting for us? He was like, the United Nations. I said, man, we're not even in the United Nations anymore. Like, who? Nope, we don't have anybody to fight for us. We're in a fight on our own. And, it's crazy. The other countries are looking at us like, man, like the United States, is this the land of the opportunity, the land of the free? Like, how they supposed to be the power, the superpower, and they having riots and things like that every day.
Right.
So like, what are the enemies thinking? And I'm a conspiracy theorist in a sense, but what are the enemies thinking? Y'all, you cannot protect the house if the internal is in turmoil. Like, let's sneak in the back door on these fools. Let's divide them with race, because that's always been the dividing factor. Let's even Russia. Let's throw social media. Let's drown it with propaganda, because people believe the first headline of everything. America really ain't the smartest that y'all think they are. We can manipulate them with fear and superiority and race, and that's what's going on. And it's just, I don't know, y'all. I just pray.
I actually just posted an article about different commentary from different leaders around the world, and it's what they were saying. I'm just going to read you all some of the comments, where the first one of the members of parliament in Myanmar said, "I feel sorry for Americans, but we can't help the U.S. because we are a very small country." Then Mike Bradley from Sarnia up in Canada says, "Personally, it's like watching the decline of the Roman Empire." Another person said, "The USA is a first world country, but is acting like a third world country." An activist from Belarus says, "It reminds me of Belarus when a person cannot admit defeat and looks for any means to prove that he can't lose. This would be a warning sign for any democracy." And then one of the directors for transparency in Mexico says, "We used to look for the U.S. for democratic governance inspiration. Sadly, this is not the case anymore. Being great is simply not enough." And the most interesting thing out of one of these said, "The world sees a dismantling of social cohesion within American society and the mess in managing COVID. There is a vacuum of leadership that needs to be filled, but America is not fulfilling that leadership role. Trump has inspired many dictators and many leaders who are interested in dictatorship to copy his style and embolden them." Okay, the train coming again, so I'm gonna have to. But the last interesting thing, and I'm leaving at this comment, what really got me, because I studied international human rights, the international criminal courts, and comparative politics. So this last one from an activist in Indonesia said, in Mexico said, "They now know what it's like in other countries, violating norms, international trade, and its own institutions. The most powerful country in the world all of a sudden looks vulnerable." So they're telling us from the outside looking in, now we know what it looks like for human rights to be violated, for these norms to just be chipped away at and not have anything left. So it's pretty interesting to see how the rest of the world is looking at us right now.
Yep, as a joke. The America failed to realize when they hold one down, they hold the whole country down. You know, everything is a trickle down.
Right.
You know, just crazy. It's crazy. I was telling somebody that, you know, the guy, they was talking about food stamps and, you know, corporate welfare, getting the tax breaks and food stamps. And I was telling them, like, the CEO of Nabisco need food stamps, because if I cannot afford to buy a piece of meat, there is no way I'm gonna be able to afford some chocolate chip cookies. So if you know what I'm saying, so the CEO need to appreciate the young lady who's on social programs, because they help them get the yacht or the fat bonuses that they need, or it keeps the cashiers to the managers to the district managers to the HR. Everybody is connected in this economy, and to look at one group of people as, you know, beneath the other, everybody serves a purpose, you know. And so when it comes to lower income people, you know, we're much needed in this circle of life. You know what I'm saying? And so when I think about, even when John Legend saying, "Oh, we need to leave," you know, if Trump becomes president, we need to think about leaving, you know, and I told you I'm a conspiracy theorist, and I think about how, you know, if anything happens to the least of those, you know, the ones who feel like they escape in the new world going to become the least of those. There's always going to be a least of those in the circle. You know what I'm saying? I don't care where you are. There's always going to be, you know, the have-nots or whatnot. It's just part of the plan. And you know, people think that they're safe from this because they're not in that lower income level. But when the lower income level become the no income level, then you become the low income level. So people don't understand how this is all connected. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, I enjoy this group because I can share my ideas and my thoughts and how I feel about certain things. So y'all don't pay no attention to me when I get somewhat on this, you know.
But I mean,
it just ties into what I feel like, what's going on, you know.
That's the part of the when we talk about the microaggressions, you know, when we let the microaggressions slide, then this is what it looks like. You know, all of the microaggressions with Trump in the beginning, but even before he was elected, they became real aggression. That became the real aggression. Right. And now it's about to be the real oppression. So I mean, all of that ties into all of that as well.
You're so right. You're so right. So I don't know. Let me see what else she talks about. It's interesting. She talks about the lady named Sharon, and I thought about with this. Did y'all see the video with the mask? The lady at the football game had on a mask, didn't have on a mask, and the security guard came and he's enforcing her. He's trying to, you know, put her hands behind her back, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And everybody, and the lady who's recording, she's like, "Call the police." She's telling her son to call the police, and he was like, "Well, Mom, the man who's arresting her has police on the back of his shirt. That's not the police." And, you know, it's like the parent is trying to tell the child, and the child like, "Mom, I'm not calling the police. This man." But anyway, and she's just feeling like the victim. And I was telling somebody, this man probably was minding his own business, probably picking up a shift because police don't make much money. Somebody had to come to him and say, "Hey, can you please tell this lady to leave because she doesn't have on her mask?" And now he's turning out the bad guy because he's a black police officer enforcing the mask rule on this victimized white lady. And the comments that you hear is like, "Oh my God, he's just all on her. He's wrong," because he tased her. I mean, because she wouldn't comply.
We don't even get that option. Right. And my whole thing is, don't sit there and pretend like you didn't know. I'm pretty sure the school sent out all kind of announcements about, before you bring your ass to this game, you need to have your mask. This is what we have mandated. This was going forward. So you can't tell me that she didn't know. She chose not to wear one because of her
white didn't think
she didn't think it was gonna go down the way that it went down. So
it was crazy. She became the victim. Go ahead,
No, I was just saying they made the mask thing, instead of it being a public health thing, they're making a political statement, you know, and a statement of the rights, which is, to me, is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
I think it's crazy.
All this is.
It is crazy. I mean, it's something every day, every week. It's just, you know, exhausting at this point.
Right. You just keep hearing it. You're like, I keep thinking, I'm like, I don't feel like maybe the media wasn't as good, but I don't remember this much violence like to this level when I was like 70s and 80s. I mean, I guess in the 80s there was the whole drug.
Well, they're trying to say like there wasn't video cameras and all that to record all the violence and stuff that's going on, but I think that's bull. I think it's more violence now.
Oh yeah, and you know the FBI even
so random.
Yeah, was it the CIA? The CIA recently released that report and said that
about the KKKs,
neo-Nazis and
the most dangerous group in America.
Like they've been on the their numbers and their activity has been increasing since Trump got into office.
Yeah.
Basically, is what from the outside looking in, what other people are saying in other countries, that he's emboldened these people.
Right, exactly.
Before they would do stuff in secret, we didn't know who they were and how they were operating. And now it's like, oh, we can just put everything out in the open because we have a leader,
that promotes
actually, make it a mainstream thing where we can do whatever we want.
Man, look at the guy that raised the little young boy, Rittenhouse. They gave him a standing ovation and his mom at a GOP rally or something like that, and he killed 2 people.
Right.
And look what they're promoting. They're just riling up other 16, 17-year-olds to want to pump up, and even the guy that ambushed the police in Texas, was it? A white supremacist. I saw to my body. I'm like, oh my God, these people really ready for something. They really hoping something falls.
Yeah.
Right. I agree. I think before, I think that
it really is. Hello?
Oh, I thought Sandra was saying something.
Me too.
Says her mic's off.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there it is.
Sandra, you there?
Maybe not.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, we
can hear you now.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I was just saying before, I think the office of president, whether you agreed, disagreed, had the same ideological beliefs or whatnot, it always had a certain dignity to it. And I think that has just fallen away. And I think that one thing you said, Yashonda, about them saying that this is the beginning of the decline of America, I see that so clearly. Like if we don't stop this now, that is just, the whole thing about America being the number one country, and all of that is just, this is gone. So I think they do feel emboldened because they have a president that's just so crass and classless in the way he says things, that he's just igniting the flame in this country, that something worse is about to happen at this point.
Right.
Well, on a global scale, it is the end.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
What America does, it's Russia, China, and the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no way that America can maintain its number one status, no matter what it does.
No.
So,
Right.
and then melting up in Russia gives them all of this new farmland, and the population explosion happening in Africa gives them a market that's going to make them a global superpower. That's coming. That's inevitable. And Russia's already on the come up. So it's between the 3 of them. And it seems like right now America is taking the route to be like, well, we're going to be hustlers too. We're going to get in step with the other hustlers. Because I don't think China or Russia cares enough to meddle in U.S. elections.
Right, they don't care. When
They
I
don't
mentioned
care.
that to my Russian student in Vietnam, she looked at me like
we don't
why
care
would we
about
wanna
what's
do
going on
something
in
like
America. Right. This is America doing this on its own.
Right. Their agenda.
Their agenda.
Their agenda.
Wow. Okay.
Losing their number one status, that's inevitable. And they have to now
trying to hang on to it
with the rest of the world. And they want to hang on to it with what they go to, their go-to, white supremacy. They always do war, but let's ramp up the white supremacy and get back to those great days.
Right. I'm totally surprised that he's practiced the level of restraint thus far and hasn't set off a nuclear weapon at this point. I'm really surprised. Is he going to have that much restraint if he gets back in office? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Well,
That's scary.
not to play devil's advocate, but I've heard people talk a lot about the amount of like killing with the drones and the things that Obama did, you know, in office, and even Biden and some of his legislation that he passed. And so I'm not miss legislation, but to where I can quote, you know, but I have heard that. So sometimes I wonder, you know, and I'm not a political person really too much, but sometimes I wonder if there is a spin too on both sides, because it's like, you know, I just look at it a lot of times like it's like two sides of the same coin. And I don't look at one as completely evil and one as completely, you know, for the people. I guess sometimes people want the lesser of two that they're thinking evils, but I know that I've just heard that Trump wasn't involved in a lot of
I don't.
Right, but he's unstable.
What?
Is what I'm scared of.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably high, you know.
Well, yeah, the thing about it is nothing has changed, because we still have those drone strikes. The difference is Trump revoked the Obama rule on reporting those, reporting the drone strike deaths.
Okay,
So that's the difference.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Right. And under them, they calculated that his numbers have far exceeded those under Obama, but they're not reporting the deaths.
Oh, okay.
He revoked that rule. They had to report the deaths.
Wow, okay.
So he basically has no accountability in that area.
What he's doing.
To me, it almost feels like we vote for either them killing us or other brown people. That's your two options.
Oh yeah.
Y'all want to die, or do you want to support us going over and killing some Iraq? You know, make your choice.
Wow.
People should pay attention. Definitely pay attention to what's going on in Israel right now, with how he's trying to get all these Emiratis behind this whole situation with Israel without offering Palestine their statehood. And right now, the only pushback they're getting is from Saudi. That's the only pushback they're getting right now from Saudi about it, because the king is adamant that he was like, no, we're not having these discussions until they're promised that. But the rest of them have gotten on board with it.
They're okay with that.
Yeah, it's been very surprising.
Yeah, that's surprising.
Guess we're in the right spot after all,
Mm.
Said the king said. It's always so funny to hear what say. There's someone said the king said. It's
I know,
like,
right?
okay. It's a very odd thing.
But you know what? It's not so far-fetched anymore. When I was thinking about that whole situation before I even went to China, and before I went to Saudi, I'm like, man, you know, this whole absolute, you know, leadership out there, authoritarianism and everything. And I'm like, but we got that at home now. Like, what's the difference? It's like, you can't tell the difference anymore. There's no clear distinction anymore.
Right.
Oh.
Yep.
Would you guys want to go on to chapter 10? You gotta go to chapter 10.
What she brings.
Chapter 10 is White Fragility and the Rules of Engagement. The rules of engagement. I don't know. I really had a hard time with this chapter.
Yeah, I think I jumped the gun and talked about this a little bit earlier, but yeah.
You always jump the gun.
Like the next one. But I don't know, just the whole, I didn't understand the whole purpose and like so thoroughly breaking down these rules of engagement and how you give feedback and how you have to do it privately and give it immediately, and the relationship has to be issue free and you have to be indirect as possible, and you know, the white person has to feel completely safe during any discussion of race. Highlighting my racial privilege invalidates the form of oppression that I experience. Classism, blah, blah, blah. You must acknowledge my intentions. I mean, she just goes on, and I just kind of felt like.
How did you interpret that, Nandi, that when she did that?
Kind of like a coddling is still going on at the same time of them in terms of this baby hands approach of this in-depth analysis of how they avoid the discussion of race, and I wonder if that's even a cover, to act as if you can't handle it and you have all these reasons and all these ways that you need to be approached, and we're going to analyze those, and then the white woman becomes the expert on racial equity and diversity and makes all this money touring on her book. And
You know, the way I interpret it is,
y'all, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was saying that the way I interpret it is that she was saying that that was the problem. Like, those are the unspoken rules, and that's a part of the problem, is that they have to feel so secure and safe, and you know, you can't blame me, you can't see me as if you're attacking me. I must feel comfortable. You know, I must not be. I must be pulled to the side. And I think that's what she's saying, is that that's a part of what keeps us from having real, honest, open discussions and getting anywhere on the conversation on a deeper level. That's the way I took it.
So how do you crack?
I took it as
how do you crack that?
Yeah, I felt like she was doing like a rule book of like, if you want to have a discussion about race with a white person, you have to keep all of these things in mind, and these are these are all the kind of errors you can make that'll shut the conversation down.
Exactly.
Like, I don't even think if I do all of that right, I almost feel like if I have to do all of that and take all of that into consideration to get to a point where we can discuss race, I still don't think you're going to get it, just because of the fact that you're not open enough to being self-analytical just from the jump. Like, you know, I feel like in a lot of ways, like, I'm a Black person in a white culture. I still, you know, I don't know if it's just because it's, you know, promulgated all around me and I can't get away from it, but I can enjoy a white film, and I can, you know, celebrate a white writer, or it's not, I don't have to put it on white. I can just look at the creation and judge it. But I feel like they can't do the same all the way, which is like, goes back to the comment with the hair comments. You feel attacked in a way because you feel like they haven't taken the time to understand your hair. So you're just kind of like, I don't want to do this with you, you know, to some level. So I think that it is like, if I did try to follow these steps, we might get somewhere. So I do think it's positive, I guess, in that regard. But I feel kind of like disappointed that it's still there.
Right. And that's what I think she was just trying to explain, that even she, as a person that, like you said, is a professor, is a diversity, you know, leader, has all of these, you know, groups where she kind of leads these discussions. Those are the things that she's seen over and over again. And I think she talked about in the previous chapter, that's why, you know, it becomes exhausting if you are a person of color, you know, to try to, you know, you can't coddle someone into all of this conversation and, you know, like you said, make you feel safe and comfortable, you're not attacked, because that's just too exhausting.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, number 4 got me. Our relationship must be issue free. Racism is the issue. So that number 4 showed me that slavery was an issue. It's institutional racism is the issue. That's why I'm coming. So you would not trust me because I have an issue, and you have to be indirect as possible. I mean, you can't make them feel victimized, which that's what they become. And even the young race, they'll come to you and they'll say, well, y'all got this and y'all got that and we don't have this. So they feeling left out, not knowing their history, that we got all of these things because we weren't involved in y'all things from BET to historically Black colleges, but they don't look at it like that. So all of this, it still tells me that the only thing going to pierce these people is the same thing that's going to turn the atheists into believing in God. You're going to have some. You're going to have to get knocked off the horse, like you know, you just gonna have, we as color, we cannot come to you because you can't have you got to be issue free. You can't say, well, you know, you're not a racist, but I mean, you got to be perfect to even approach them. This job is not for us. She has clearly shown us that this job is not for us. I know this book is for her people, and I can see why. She got me. I'm a believer. Yeah. So I don't know.
Like Sandra, in the fact that I read her list to be mostly sarcastic because she pairs everything and then she amps it up. So I think that what she is saying is that whites in America have an unrealistic expectation of the extent that people can and will go to be able to teach them. Because she actually says on one of the pages, like, I encountered hiccups and I look like them. Like, she comments on the fact that she gets pushed back whenever she walks into a room and they actually look like her. She's like, and I'm speaking calmly and I'm sharing, shared experiences, and I still get pushback. So I think that what she is saying, to Kayla's point, is that, like, yes, it should be a situation which other people, primarily people of color, are able to do it, but that she's going to have an easier time, but she still has hiccups. So I don't think that she's trying to say that it can't be done. I think that she is pointing out, like, these are going to be the things that you're going to experience because people are reluctant to hear about where they're in the wrong.
Yeah. It's a big challenge.
I know, like when she talks about our relationship, what did you say, Kayla, must be issue free? It's like we could be friends, but it's always we have to maintain it at a superficial type relationship where we don't talk about anything that's difficult or challenging or that challenges anything that I believe about myself. I think I was watching was it George Stephanopoulos this morning, and he had a voter on that was talking about, yes, he was going to vote for Biden because he just ethically could not continue to remain a Trump supporter. He said, but one of the things that brought him, that made him support Trump in the first place was this message that he felt like, and I knew he meant as a white person, that he was continually getting the message that he was a bad person, that they're bad people. And so I think that goes back to what she's saying is that, I forgot what she said in the beginning chapters. Either you're, kind of like good or bad. I forgot how she put it.
Bad binary.
Right, the good, bad binary, exactly. But he was saying that was one of the issues he had. And I thought that was just so clear when he was speaking this morning. And that it's almost like we can remain peaceful as long as we don't go deeper, we don't have deeper conversations, and we can be friends on the surface, just don't challenge me in any way, shape, form, or fashion.
And I feel like if that for that conversation,
you see that
something else that they do, if what's the saying, a hit dog a holler. If you feeling like that's being directed towards you, if the shoe fits, I mean, that's how I feel about the whole situation, because if you are continuously saying, if somebody's continuously saying white people are bad, well, if I'm anti-racist, if I'm fighting to ensure that I'm not promoting white supremacy, and I'm standing with Black people and other people of color, then if I'm challenging all of these norms, why would I feel like that applied to me?
I agree, totally. It wouldn't bother me on that level.
Right.
Exactly.
But that's the argument that they give. And it's like, but if that's not you,
right,
what are you so upset about?
Right.
I mean, she makes a big deal too about them feeling like, the building of trust. She talks about that, and that, that's super important for them before, like, they can start to take any steps, is there has to be this building of trust. And then she even breaks that down to say there's guidelines to build trust. So, those are don't judge, don't make assumptions, assume good intentions. But I'm wondering about, Yeah, it's just interesting to look at that through the lens of being someone who's experiencing racism, I guess, and how you would approach someone who doesn't, and try to get them to get it. Because it's hard to experience something, you know. I mean, it's hard to, I think, empathize or even really get something unless you go through it. Like you're talking about the dog being hit and hollering. It's like until you go through some kind of pain, it's really hard to just kind of really get what someone's talking to you about. If they talk about some trial they overcame or suffering through something, or, you know, even like having a surgery and having to make their way back, you know, you're kind of like, oh, wow, that must have been rough. But you don't really, you know, till you get in the hospital, they're like, man, I know what they were talking about.
Oh yeah, and you know, it's funny that you mentioned that because a lot of them stopped supporting Trump when their family members started dying from COVID.
Exactly.
Pissed off because he's like, oh, it's a hoax, it's blah blah blah. We're like, oh, but my husband just died, or my sister just died, and I trusted you that you were, you know, giving me the right information, and now this. So a lot of them are coming to the realization that way, and a lot of them have come to be enlightened because of what's happened with the pandemic. Period.
I bet that did change some minds. I think, and especially people who were personally impacted. You know, I do some side logging work, and there's a show called Inside the OR, and so they follow like cases or like extremely risky surgeries that are being done out of Northwestern Hospital. And I guess a growing thing that's really sad in a way is that some of the patients that have gotten COVID, then it's just completely ravaged their lungs to where they had to have like this new double lung transplant surgery. They transplant both of your lungs at the same time, which I guess is not normally how they do it. And this doctor who's doing it, this is like only the third one he's done, but it's just, I mean, I personally hadn't heard about how it could be so ravaging, I guess, because they said his lungs were fine before he got the COVID. So it's kind of scary. Isn't that scary?
Yeah.
God says he doesn't want to think about that, so I'm going to change.
It's scary.
I like when, I love that though at the end of the chapter where she says that the antidote to white fragility is to build up our stamina to bear witness to the pain of racism that we cause, not to impose conditions that require people of color to continually validate our denial. Now that right there, she wrapped it right back around for me. Because I do feel like that's what we need to do to some extent. That's a step to me in the right direction. I don't know what everybody, to kind of put on their big girl, or like she says to have the stamina, build up the stamina to bear witness to the pain of racism. And I would put in there, and also our privilege therein, to reevaluate our privilege. Because that's one that I think is even more difficult, because I feel like that's inherent in that is you feeling good about yourself, because everything in the system validates that you're superior. So I don't think that's easy. It would be hard for me to put down that coat, you know what I mean? Like my superiority cloak, in terms of not even really realizing sometimes that they say that you're carrying it, but that you just kind of move through the world with, this inherent superiority. So I think that that's hard to get at, to chip away at. I feel like that's a very slow process. It's almost like reconditioning everyone's mind, reconditioning people's minds so that they think differently about, race or intellect, or like the assumptions that we make, prejudices that we make, so that you're reconditioned to not see beauty and things like this or intellect in one way first in your mind because of what you're taught and because what you see around you,
Seems like in order for America to heal, that there's a lot of reconditioning that need to be done from whites and blacks. Just piggybacking off the last book we read, he talks about how mentally, we have to change our mentality or the way we do about things to see progress. So everything goes back to reconditioning of the mind and breaking, breaking generational lives and things like that. It's just a pessimist, but it's just a challenging thing to do. So do we try to take care of us and then they take care of them to try to figure out why we're like we are? Do we leave it up to them? And how she put it, they're the ones that can really pierce each other while we get ourselves together, because we are broken people, as well as they're broken, because just from them having to depend on their race, shows a level of brokenness to them. So it's just like America, just full of broken people that everybody needs reconditioning.
Oh.
Yeah, so.
I mean, I agree. I think that goes back to us, reading Breaking the Curse of Willie Lynch last month, and it also ties into this book with how she talks about how racism couldn't exist the way that it does without that black-white construct, is that everything that they say that we are is what they are. When they talk about us being violent, it's because
barbaric.
Right. They basically imprinted that upon us because of the things that they do to us. So I think, it's all of it is deeply embedded, psychological, ingrained in their DNA type stuff, and our trauma is ingrained in us. So I think we probably all need to be on somebody's couch trying to seek some healing, on both sides. What they've done to us and what we've had to suffer, at their hands type thing.
The practice I work at, Shonda, ironically that you say that, a lot of the intakes that we get now from Black people are like literally causes of stress, like literally it says being Black in America. And that is becoming pretty commonplace for our therapy intake clients.
Wow. That's amazing.
Because none of this is normal. It's not normal to turn on the TV every day and see somebody that looks like you being murdered. Like, that's not okay. That's not normal.
Right. Why is the violence so out of control? What is going on with that?
Right.
That's just,
Right.
But you wonder, I wonder sometimes even about the
gun sales went up by a lot on both ends, on both sides.
Whether that energy is still here, where it's like a war, the culture is violent, so there's a lot of things that contribute to the the wars that they've had. I mean, there's just a lot of then those are all the big movies about this war and being a hero. There's all these things connected to this whole thing in really deep ways. Celebrating that and I don't know, honoring that, right? And then it's like the violence is now bleeding out into just everywhere. It's like it's just random and just,
feels like we're trapped in their war. Like they brought us here. They were already at war. You remember before they even met us, they were having public beheadings and they were violent people before we even came into their world. They were violent with each other. That's how they ended up in America. Violence.
Right.
And so the North and the South, they've always been at war with each other. And I think we're just the scapegoat. Like until they can really get into it with each other, they're going to attack us. And then let's say if we're removed, then they'd really get into it with each other. They'd really go to war Because if it was really about white supremacy, they would all be kicking it. But they're not. And they use the ones who can't compete to promote this violence.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, oh, we can't compete anyway. So sure, we'll promote that violence, but that's who they're really mad at, is themselves.
Exactly.
So that's why Trump, he plays these people.
Mm-hmm.
But he said before, he'd probably choose Republicans because they're dumb. And he knows these, you know, people who want to go out and kill because there's a screw loose. Not because it has anything to do with us. And they just use that towards each other. So we need to somehow get out of this
crossfire
and let them go at it.
And I
but we can't remove ourselves, and that's what I mean, how random they are. When you hear about these horrible incidences, they're like someone running in a park, or I mean, they're so like, you would never, you know, you can't anticipate it, you can't predict it. It's so random that it's like just whenever they're feeling whatever they're feeling, you know what I mean, and it could pop off.
That's very
That's
true.
what's scary about it to me. It's not even like, you know, preparing your, you know, how do you prepare yourself for that, for random violence?
But you know, that goes back to what the CIA was talking about, you know, with the rise in the neo-Nazis and, you know, the white supremacists and everything, is because it's random. Like you said, it's not something that it's like, oh, all of us got together and decided that, you know, we were going to go blow up a couple of buildings. No, it's I woke up today and I've been feeding myself all of this propaganda and I'm just going to go out and do it, you know.
Right.
We're not the ones that's sitting in here stockpiling weapons, even with the guy that the police just killed, you know, and all the stuff that they found on him. Like, if they had not stopped him, what was going to happen? You know, because he had a full-on arsenal of weapons.
Who is this?
Right. What was he prepared to do?
Right. The
white guy
they just killed, that they tried to stop in a traffic stop. That was a neo-Nazi.
Oh, wow.
He took them on a chase and everything, and they were running after him, and he ambushed them and shot one in the leg and his car was just full of, oh my God, like,
and it
was this week?
That
was this week?
Wow.
Yes, like his car was full of warlike machinery and stuff. Like, they ready.
He was trained because of how he led them over to that cemetery and was able to get strategic positions to fire on them, and almost got back to his
truck.
His truck, had they not put some other officers over there. Like, it was very strategic.
Because they do drills and stuff. These people they hunt more than deer. That's just a cover up. Ain't that much deer in the world. They preparing for the apocalypse. Yeah. They preparing.
Right, because you don't need an AR-15 to go out and hunt deer. I mean, that's for war.
I mean, that sport alone show you the barbarism that exists. And like he said, like, they call us barbarian and they call us animals and things like that. I think you have to be violent to conquer all the people and lands that you've conquered. Like, that's the only way you can, is to be violent. And this country was created on violence. And some of the worst people of Europe was sent over here. So what are we dealing with? You know what I mean? Not the best of Europeans came here to start this country off.
Yeah, we know that.
We see that, don't we? We see that. Like, I'm just being real, you know. You know, so it is. This country was made on violence and white supremacy. So, you know, one thing I think about Trump, though, I don't think he's a puppet he's not following what them people want him to follow in the higher end. I think he is doing his own thing. He's, like he said, he's uncontrollable. I don't think they can control him like the other presidents have been in control, you know.
Right, I would agree.
I don't think they can either.
So I don't know the outcome of this, but he done shook up a lot of things since he's been in office. I can say that.
Right. Even by him saying this week, you know, that he wasn't going to leave office, you know, I think they're like, what in the entire hell I mean, like, it's just been crazy.
And for the Republicans to sit there, these people are diehard constitutionalists. Like, and for them to sit there and just allow it to happen,
Be quiet.
They care
he
about
got
nothing.
some stuff. He got some stuff on
Preserving
these
white
people.
supremacy.
Pence, he know you a homosexual and you ain't gonna say nothing. He got some dirt on a lot of these people. That's why they scared to say stuff. He know how to play. He's a dirty man.
Oh yeah, all of them complicit
too.
All of them complicit, and all of them, if they lose, they also know if they lose this election, a lot of them going to jail. That's the other thing.
So that's it.
Oh yeah.
Right.
So they gotta stick together. He probably telling them that too. You know, if I go down, you going too, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, he's absolutely saying
That's
that.
what he's saying.
Right.
And everybody praising Cohen. I don't praise Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen.
Right.
Michael Cohen say, you know, Trump or racist, but you were his lawyer for 10 plus years. The black girl name, you like her now because you don't got kicked out of the group. But I don't have no respect for y'all because if you wouldn't have got kicked out of the group,
You wouldn't be telling it all.
Kissing Trump butt and saying nigga this and nigga that too.
Yeah,
You know it. So thank you for
right.
telling it. But your assistant, she comes out talking to you. They have downplayed your reputation. So anybody that come out, even from the auntie, they not gonna believe it because y'all was part of this until something happened. They got a way of turning everything around. I tell you, this America is so naive.
And plus, you got to sell your book at this point. So it's all about the book deal, you know, and the interviews.
Yeah,
Right. Exactly.
Right. So yeah. So nothing can. Trump got his sound supporters. That's not going to change. And like he said when he first came to office, I could shoot somebody in the middle of Times Square or whatever and still they get voted on. That boosted him up then.
Right.
So and they've proven that. Like his they have solidified. That's that solidarity that ain't gonna shake about nothing. So I just hope enough of us come out. But I don't know, because some of us, they said the black vote has
Breaking up
increased a little bit to him. I don't know if it was from these fake. You hear me? Can y'all hear me?
The black people what?
They said the black vote, more black people are voting for him this year than 4 years ago.
Oh, for Biden?
No, for Trump.
Oh, for Trump.
I haven't seen those numbers. I know one of the dudes, the white guys, who said that he was he was into running the poll numbers, said not to believe anything at this point.
Oh, really?
Don't believe anything about right. Don't believe anything about who they say is ahead or behind.
Oh, you can't. We noticed that 4 years ago.
Yeah.
They don't have an accurate assessment of that yet, right? Yeah.
But I think you can look at you can still kind of get a general idea. And without honesty, with so much is going on, even from COVID, even from the stimulus check and all of that, I've seen a lot of my black people saying stuff like Trump ain't as bad as y'all say he is and things like that.
Who these people are? These the same idiots that ain't never voted a day in their lives and not going.
So a lot of them are.
They pushing the propaganda, but they not going to vote for anyone.
That's true too. That's true too. But a lot of I have seen it. A lot of them are going to vote, and they feel like Trump is giving black. I mean, he's piercing through some black voters more than I can imagine.
Yeah.
Really, it's going to be up to the white women, like it was the last time. It's really going to boil down to whether these white suburban women are going to stick with how their husbands are voting, or if they're going to change
go another way.
Right, which is what it boiled down to the first time, right?
Yeah,
the last election.
That's what it was.
They went in the booth and they voted for Trump.
Yeah,
it wasn't black women for sure.
For sure, yeah.
White women.
Yeah.
And that's It seems like that's what's going on now because their husbands haven't changed courses, especially not in the South. They listen to their husbands, Trump and Pence.
Now,
And then
those poll numbers about Georgia, I do believe, because, and I'm gonna tell you why, is because of how it went with Kemp and Stacey Abrams. Like that election,
what are the numbers?
Essentially turned Georgia blue. They have them neck and neck in
50,
Georgia.
yeah, 50-50, right?
Yeah, 50-50.
Okay.
So we got the potential to flip at this point, and I'm hoping that we do. I'm really hoping that
Mississippi was close.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be good.
That'd be a
That would be